You are listening to the Marketing 32 Show with your host, Brett Allen.
Hi, Brett Allen here, host of the Marketing 32 Show, where I connect with leading dentists and influencers and industry experts. As you know, we go deep. We uncover the latest and greatest in dentistry and how to grow your practice, how to help your team thrive, and just dominate your market. This episode is brought to you by our team here at Marketing 32. Of course, we are the only dental marketing team that has a performance guarantee that if you're not growing, you don't pay. We truly are invested in your growth and demonstrating impact for your practice. That's why we call it the practice impact formula. You grow or you don't pay. So if you need help with your marketing, reach out to us at Marketing 32. We'll have a quick call to see if we're a great fit for one another. Quick shout out to Catherine Alderman. Recently had her on the show, talked all about AI and how AI is taking over dentistry and how you can dominate the results in AI, get your practice showing up when patients are searching and doing research. Check that episode out. We've got a whole value add for you. I even give away things on that show to help you rank in AI. So I got a new friend here today, Trish Jones. Welcome to the show. She's an accomplished dental hygienist and an award-winning technical account manager at Ivoclar. Her passion for dentistry extends beyond patient care, as she is dedicated to educating others on dental materials. This commitment enables her to bridge the communication gaps that often exist between dental teams and laboratories. We'll go deep today on how you guys can reduce remakes, reshapes, all of that. For Trish, making laboratory communication both effective and enjoyable is key. She believes that when communication is engaging and accessible, it not only improves work life for all involved, but also results in smiles that leave a lasting impression on patients' lives. Trish, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about all of this stuff. I didn't realize this was like a big focus in dentistry, that there's such a need for understanding materials with our teams and how you can reduce all of this overhead cost that kind of rises up when your team doesn't understand the materials. So this will
No,
be neat.
absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot more goes into it. And I don't think a lot of people are speaking on it, but it's very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah. But before we get into that and what you're doing technically, let's I love to go back in time and talk about Trish before dentistry. Like, what were you doing before dentistry and what brought you into dentistry?
Well, I think I've always been in industry. I actually graduated from high school and I went right into the dental hygiene
Wow.
program. Like the youngest in my class, and I loved it. And matter of fact, I loved it so much I went on and got a bachelor's degree in healthcare management. And then I was going to go on to dental school, but I got a little sidetracked with life, and I didn't make it. But I think things happen for a reason, and I've had a really fulfilling career as a hygienist. And I had moved to Nevada at one time in my life. I love Nevada, so shout out to the hygienist out there. And but eventually made it back into Texas. But I also, when I left hygiene, I went to go work for a dental lab, and I was at a training facility for dentists. So I learned all about dental materials and shades and
Wow.
impressions and all the stuff I didn't know in clinical hygiene. I just didn't know. I worked in the dental office, but I just didn't know. So I
Oh,
loved that part. And so I spent a few years there working with teams and how to have them have a better understanding of the materials. And then when I moved to Texas, I worked for uh, Invisalign for a little bit, and
okay.
as a iTero trainer on the scanner, so realized the importance of that. But then opportunity knocked from Ivoclar, and yes, I went to work for them on the lab
Cool.
side, which is cool because then now things come full circle because there's still a need for dental offices to have a better understanding of lab materials because that's what makes the success of a case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I didn't realize this was such a big deal. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube, I have Sheer Smile clear aligners. And when the doc put the little stickies on your teeth, he did a color check to make sure that the sticky or whatever you call them, I don't know, you guys are in dentistry, you know what, it matches the color of my teeth. And I didn't realize, you were telling me before the show, that there's oftentimes um, you have to do a reshape or recolor because you didn't get the color right.
Hmm.
And that can add overhead to the practice. So yeah,
Yeah.
tell us more about that, and then how you help teams, educate and bring awareness to all of this stuff.
Well, definitely dentistry is full circle, and it all depends on the education. It also depends on communication. As we all know, is you gotta have communication in the dental office, but you also have to have that communication with the dental lab. And a lot of times when things go array, it's easier for the office to say, "Oh, it's the lab's fault." But then the
Ugh.
lab's looking at, "Oh, it's probably the doctor's fault." But really it's both because it's just the lack of communication. When if let's say if I give you a picture and then you have to describe it to me without me looking at it,
Yeah.
I have to replicate it. It's gonna be a little challenging, and that's basically what it
Yeah.
comes down to dentistry is how well can you communicate? And some of the basic tools of that is, one of the most common remakes is like remakes or reshades because the color
Uh-huh.
wasn't correct. Now we do know 8 to 10% of males are colorblind. Women are also colorblind as well, not a high percentage. So you wanna make sure whoever's
Yeah.
taking the shade is not, colorblind or
Oh,
have any
yeah.
visual
Good point.
deficiencies. You know, and, even my daughter is partially colorblind, and so I was like, "Oh my gosh," and she's, it's
There's
crazy.
just the slight hues that
It's
are
a slight
different.
hues,
So,
but that makes the
yeah.
difference, and,
Yeah.
so there's a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
things that go into taking the shade, and that is the material selection, the thickness of that material, the final shade outcome. Are you matching up to something that's existing? And so when I first started working in the lab, I was like, "Man, it's really a miracle things just even match," because you realize there a lot goes into it.
There's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, just like, for instance, imagine yourself going into Home Depot, you're gonna paint your wall, uh, a shade of tan. Now, if you go in there and you look at
Yeah.
you're overwhelmed by the color swatches because you had no idea tan could come in so many different shades.
Yeah, and white. We've done this. My wife and I, we've done a lot of remodels. In fact, we're about to do a big remodel on our home here in Colorado. But yeah, picking a color is hard because you got daytime lighting, nighttime
Mhm.
lighting,
Yep.
and
And
and the subtleties between the shades and do they work well with other colors? All of that is
exactly.
it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. So when it comes to teeth, there's something called metamerism, and that's kinda like what we're talking about. Different the same shade will look different with different backgrounds. And so same thing
Oh,
happens
okay.
in someone's mouth, because you wanna take in consideration the patient's hair color, complexion, whites of their eyes. Those all play a part. The color of your gums, believe it or not, or like a frame. So, first of all, never, ever, ever hand the patient the shade guide, because once you hand them the shade guide,
Oh,
what color do you go to?
oh man, the super
You
white.
you're
We
super
call
light,
them.
and that
Yeah.
may not be the most ideal shade. So never,
Yeah.
ever hand them that. But, what I'm talking about is getting back to some basics, is learning how to know what the shade guide's about, what A, B, C, and D shades are, what they represent. There's also something called chroma, hue, and value. And also, what is the patient? Are we doing a single tooth matchup? Are we doing a smile design? Um, where is the restoration going to be located? All plays a part in that. Um, how to make that work. And in the end, what's really, really important is anytime that you have, let's say the shade wasn't correct, normally you're going to send it back to the lab. They're either going to have to reshade it or remake it, but the patient's also going to have to come back to have it tried
Yeah,
in
that
and
work
seated.
done.
But when
That's
you get
annoying.
to that step, it's a lose-lose situation. The doctor has lost overhead because he's not going to charge that patient to come back in. The
Yeah.
laboratory is not going to charge the doctor to reshade or remake that case. So we both we both lose. And so
Yeah.
if we can bridge that communication and get that shade correct in the beginning, and then in the laboratory they get it spot on at that time, it's a
Yeah.
win-win. And so we don't think it adds up, but if you look at and you can run reports, how many reshades, remakes are you doing? Well, then that should cue you in. Like if we're doing a lot of reshades, we need to change something. We need to
Something's off.
re-educate.
Yeah.
Something's off. Re-educate somebody, and that's where I can come in and help out. Help people get better grasp of shades and how to talk about it. Now, there is one really fun thing about taking shades, and that is so if you're the patient and you come in, what's the most important thing to you in the end?
Yeah, I want my smile to look right. I don't
You know,
want
look right.
anything to look off, like one tooth is sticking out different color than the others.
Exactly. And so usually to the
Yeah.
patient, the shade's the most important thing because that's their visual. So a lot of times in the dental office, it's the least amount of time that we spend on something that's important to the patient. So at the same time, we can actually elevate that dental appointment by how we take the shade. We can, if they come in with something brightly colored, we can neutralize the background. You can drape them with a gray towel. You can also,
Mm.
if the doctor's using, and most of them are using these greatest, they're awesome loupes. They look like binoculars and
Yeah,
they're focused.
yeah.
Well, when you prep a tooth, if it takes 30, 45 minutes, your eyes are strained. So you're not taking the ideal shade. Now, mind you, well, maybe I'll let the assistant take it. Well, she's then been side by side suctioning as well, so she's not ideal either. So the ideal time to take a
Interesting.
shade is at the very start of that appointment.
Like right when they sit in the chair and they look at you.
Yep. And and
Yeah.
and you can make it a big deal to the patient, and then that's what they're thinking about. So there's little tips and pointers that, can make such
Yeah.
a
You
big
you
difference.
also mentioned like implementing a process where you do the shade as part of the normal hygiene. Like you're
Yes,
you're talking to them about their shade. Tell me about that again. How
absolutely.
that can be important.
Well, this is where I think always a hygienist. I'm always a
Yeah.
hygienist. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but one of the things that I think is very valuable, and I know I have several of my hygienist friends say, "Oh my gosh, this works out so well." And it's not adding more to what you're doing. It's just because it doesn't take a split second to take a baseline shade. So you're coming into
Yeah.
patients, you're
Baseline
taking
shade.
either the X-rays, you're updating their health history, the blood pressure, you're maybe probing. Well, then take a baseline shade of that patient and when they come back in for their next retail appointment, take it again. The thing is, as we age, your teeth do tend to grow darker.
Mm.
They tend to shade darker from everything we're eating, age. But when you let the patient know, they may come in for the next recare appointment, and you're like, oh well, now you were an A1 last appointment. Now you're more of an A2. They're like, oh, I'm a little darker.
Yeah.
Well, what can I do about that? Well,
Stop
you know
drinking so
what?
much coffee.
Yeah, coffee, tea, no one's gonna cut that out. You gotta be realistic.
Yeah.
Just don't drink coffee or tea anymore, just water, and everyone's like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
okay." And then what the hygienist can say, "Hey, you know what? We have this wonderful whitening program in our office, and it will bring that shade back
Yeah,
up
it's
to
a
where you
great
were."
opportunity. And if
So
you're not
what
taking that baseline shade, you don't even have
you you
opportunity
don't
to
even
talk about
know.
that.
So
Yeah.
it's great for the hygienist to learn about the shade guide and have a shade guide in their operatory.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
wonder how much, like, if we could do a study on, like, if we implemented this in so many practices and then we did a production study to see how much whitening uh, revenue was collected as a result of just implementing this baseline shade test.
exactly. It makes a difference. It makes a difference when the patient asks for it because they've opened the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus,
You're not like,
"Oh,
hey,
your
your
teeth are
teeth are a
getting
little
darker," and
yellow or
people are like,
darker.
"Oh." Yeah.
Yeah, now you make them feel bad versus yeah, and it's
And
like,
they're like, "Oh, you need
"Oh,
some
but
whitening." Yeah, then they feel bad, yeah.
if
It's
they see it,
if
yeah,
they see it, and so it's different. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And so I find that to be a very useful, tool,
yeah,
definitely
for
for the
sure.
hygienist, yeah.
Let's get back to so when you're working with teams, what's kind of a common procedure or process for, um, finding out what the shade is when you're doing a crown or veneers or whatever? What's the process like so that because you mentioned there's a breakdown in educating the team and that contributes to reshades and all of that.
Yeah,
Well, what's the standard process in the practice? Who's taking the color, and how do you educate the team?
it varies. We have, shade and color is something really fun and unique, and we can pump that appointment up, but you have to have a better understanding of it. And a lot of times I know that a lot of the doctors, it depends on the doctors, are like, oh, I like so and so to take the shades because they're always spot on, or I like
Yeah,
to take the
they've
shade. So
got a
it all
good
depends
eye.
on who's taking the shade. And when I'm relating to a woman, I always say it's like you go into the makeup counter and they're trying to find the perfect foundation. There's different shades of yellow, gray, browns, and those colors. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Um, and so you definitely want, a designated person maybe to take the shade, but everyone have to have a baseline understanding of the shade guide. Like what does A, B, and C stand for? What is, chroma? It's, for instance, A1, A2. The two is actually stands for it has more chroma to it. One stands for the value is a little higher, which is the level of grayness. So
Mm,
once you kind of have a basic understanding of the shade guide, it makes a lot more sense whenever you're taking a shade for the patient. Now, one
mhm.
thing I like to do when I work with patients that we're doing a smile designs, which those are always the fun ones because they're
Yeah.
excited, patient's excited. And I would look at that patient and say, okay, in the end, let's say your teeth are all done and you walk into a room full of all your friends and family. Do you want them to look at you and go, there's something different about you. Did you hair color, weight loss? Don't know, but there's a sparkle about you. Or do you want to walk in and go, wow, look at that smile. What the heck?
Whoa,
They'll
turn off the lights.
yeah, what the, and patients surprisingly will tell you exactly. They'll be like, oh, if I'm doing this, we're going, I want something white, or people like, oh no, I don't
Yeah.
want to be like, I want something whiter than I have. And that will tell you a telltale point right then and there, which shade tab you're going to do. Because you're not ever going to hand them the shade guide, remember? But you're going to run
Yeah.
across and then you're going to go, you know what? They're an A1 right now. Let's pick up the next shade lighter and or let's say, hey, I want the dazzling smile,
Yeah.
like, oh my, you may start with the darkest of the bleach shades and hold it up, because you do want
Yeah.
to hold up one shade tab at a time, because then you want to compare, and the reason why you want to look at their face, and it's easier to do it when they're not numb, because nothing's more distracting than your lips
Y-
hanging down and you're like
Yeah.
is to do it and say, hey, what do you think? Look at the eyes, the whites of your eyes. I want you to look at your hair color. I want to look at your complexion. And for men like you have a beard. That plays a part in it as
Yeah,
well.
that's part of it.
If
Yep.
someone is, let's say we have a senior gentleman in the chair and his beard's all white, he could go for a lot lighter color because, we're comparing to
Right.
his beard. For women, I like to find out what shade of lipstick they like to wear, because that will play a part in how their teeth
How
look.
much it pops. Yeah.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
those are different, little tips that,
Yeah.
make the appointment fun. And the patient was like, wow, they're doing this is really different. They never asked me this before. Because in
Yeah.
the end, when they leave the office, you won't see them for, till they come back for the recare appointment or a post-op, but then they're going on to live their life and hopefully
Yeah.
make referrals and recommendations back to your office saying, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
They did something
They did a
different in the
great job
office.
with my
They did a
teeth.
great,
Yeah.
they really paid attention to, you know, what I'm
Right.
wearing and way I looked. And, they explained to me they had special lighting in the office, and, you know, and it's different because right now I know I go into every now and then I recently did a lunch and learn. I said, well, when do you take the shade? It's like, well, when the patients, sometimes we take it out in the parking lot as the patient's leaving. And I'm like, oh
Oh,
my God.
really?
I'm like, because we
Really?
forgot about it. I'm like, oh
Oh,
my gosh, don't be doing that. But it
yeah.
happens. I mean, it happened. But the thing is getting into a different routine and rearrange, the timing of the appointment so you can build in value
That
that
time. Yeah.
that will save you money. Because the minute you have to do a reshade or a remake, we're all done.
Yeah.
You didn't, it loses the profitability on that appointment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for bringing awareness to this. I didn't know about this. This is fascinating, and you dropped a number of tips to help improve upselling the patient into whitening, improving the process with the team. This has
Hmm.
been super valuable. Thank you for your time today, Trish. If we
Absolutely.
have someone listening that wants your help or wanting to do a lunch and learn type thing with their team or wanting your help, where do we send them?
You can send them. I can be reached at Trish Jones, and I can have you call me at 830-743-7685, or you can reach me at gotrishjones@gmail.com, or
Okay.
you can also reach me at trish.jones@ivoclar.com.
Okay, great. We'll put all of that into the show notes. So if you guys want to reference our website, marketing32.com, and find Trish's episode, all of that's there so you can reach out to her. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Trish. This was a
Absolutely.
fun
Thank you so
conversation.
much. Oh, yeah, I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Until next time, everybody on the Marketing 32 show, have a great day. Take care.